My name is Julie Turney, and this is the HR Sound Off podcast show, the show created for HR and business professionals to discuss pertinent topics and trends as it relates to our professions. We're going to have amazing conversations with HR professionals from all over the world, get to learn their origin stories. How did they get into this profession? What do they love about being here? And how they want to set the record straight on that one misconception that really drives them crazy about our profession. Are you ready? I'm ready. Then let's sound off. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the HR Sound Off podcast show. Today is a really great day because I get to geek out on some HR tech, and I get to also geek out on some HR learning experiences. And it's been an absolute pleasure for me to be working alongside the Academy to Innovate HR, which is AIHR, based out of Rotterdam. And today I'm going to introduce them to you. And so here to have a conversation with me about AIHR and how they can help you to be the best HR professional that you could possibly be is Erik van Vulpen. Erik, how are you doing today?
I'm
Did
doing
I say
well.
your name right?
You do. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Julie.
You're absolutely welcome. So let's get started because I'm just so excited to have this conversation with you. Tell our audience a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? Who is Erik? What do you do? I know you as the face of AIHR. Like every video I watch, I always see mostly you. And I know there are other members of the team, but you share such great insights in those videos. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Oh, this is much appreciated. No, I'm Erik van Vulpen. I founded about 5 years ago AIHR, the Academy to Innovate HR. 5 years ago, it started as a blog on people analytics, actually. I graduated from psychology, law, and business administration. A big fan of I know psychology / HRM. Love the field. And I ran into this field of people analytics. And what was interesting to me is that when I spoke with experts, they had really great stories about what it was and how you could use it, how you could leverage metrics to make better decisions, for example, in HR. But then if I Googled it, I couldn't find any useful information.
Yeah.
So I thought, why shouldn't we, start to create that information? Because, maybe we'll actually put some quality content online and it will be useful for some of the HR folks out there.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. It started as a weblog, that good old fashioned way you read articles. Yeah. And that got picked up very quickly, actually. And then people started reaching out to us, and us is myself and my business partner, Nando Steenhuis, and saying, it's very interesting to read articles about this, but I would love to learn more. Where can I actually learn how to do this? And we didn't really know a good place where you could actually learn how to implement people analytics in your organization. This was 5.5 years ago. So people analytics was still very much an emerging field.
Yeah.
So we thought, maybe we should make a course. So we set out, my business partner Nando sold the course. I made the course itself, and we created a course, and that became hugely popular. And one course became 2, became 5, became 45, 50-ish, I think, at the moment, courses that we have, where we focus on, people analytics, on digital HR, but also all the different centers of expertise within HR. So diversity and inclusion, conversation and benefits, organizational development and design, talent acquisition, and I'm forgetting a bunch of them. But we try to focus on all those HR pillars.
Yes, I actually love the one that you have on the HR business partner, how to become an HR business partner. And I think that that's a really great course that people can look at to see, as you are progressing in your HR career, you can use this course to help you with the fundamental foundations of building your career into the HR business partner role. But yes, I absolutely love AIHR. I recommend it to every single HR professional. It is the foundation in my coaching practice. When people are asking me, what course can I do to learn more about this? I want to be more people driven. I want to be more analytical. How do I do that? And I go, you need to go to AIHR. The other thing that I love that you guys have, let's talk a little bit about this, is your the assessment that you use to help people determine how T-shaped they are as HR professionals, what brought that feature? Because I use that like every day.
That is awesome. It's awesome to get that feedback. So we started because, essentially just like we started with the courses, because a lot of people asked for it. Same with the T-shaped HR professional. So for us, maybe it's good to explain a little bit what
it
first
is,
what the T-shape is before I start raving about the assessment, because I love the topic.
Agile.
Exactly. So for us, the T-shape is very briefly that every HR professional should be T-shaped, meaning that they have a number of core competencies, the horizontal part of the T, and then the functional specialization being the vertical part of the T.
Yes.
And for us, the core competencies are data literacy, and that's I'll keep it very brief because I can talk about this for hours.
I know.
Data literacy, like the digital skills, digital integration, we call it, business acumen, and people advocacy. And in the assessment, essentially, it was because a lot of both individuals and organizations reached out to us saying, as an organization, I have 100 people. I would love for them to upskill, but some of them, are very data-driven, very digitally minded, and might want to improve in different areas. Well, the majority, is very people-centric, and we want them to improve in. So can we create a learning journey that both, these different personas can both fit into?
Yes.
And that's essentially how the competency assessment came about, where we look at, where we measure what people's levels are on these different core competencies. And then, if you score very high on one competency but lower on the other competency, it makes more sense, to start there. Because in the end, you want to have a base level on all those competencies, and you still have some areas that you're naturally good at, of course, but you do want to have a base level on all of them. And that's kind of how that assessment came about.
Yeah, that is an amazing assessment. I really appreciate that you guys created it, because I think when I took it, for me, it was good. But I know, like, sometimes when I refer my clients to go take this test before we start a coaching journey, let's see where you're at. A lot of times people are so surprised when they realize that their people advocacy is not where they really thought it would be. What your expectation is of where you are really, and what really shows up in that test really helps you to determine how you're going to move forward. And I know a lot of people seem to struggle with business acumen for sure. Whoever created it, amazing. Absolutely.
Thanks. And might actually be quite interesting. Quite recently, we analyzed some of the data that we have in the assessment. I think we have 5,600, over 5,000 people went through the assessment, and then we looked at, how do people score on these 4 core competencies. And then we saw that people's advocacy actually scores quite high. So in general, people score relatively high on people advocacy compared to the other 3.
Yes.
Where you then see, I think that the next was business acumen, already much lower, and then data literacy, the ability to read, interpret, create data, and leverage data to make decisions. And then the lowest of them was digital integration, which is this, awareness of technology, being able to work with technology like a digital teenager, which I think is I didn't think of that, but I think it's an awesome way of putting it. And then, knowing the technology that's out there, and at least on a conceptual level, and seeing the opportunities of bringing that technology in the organization, not having to do it yourself, but at least having an understanding of that technology. And we see that the people advocacy scores quite high, and then the other 3, business acumen, data literacy, and digital integration, almost at a similar level, score all quite low. So I think most HR professionals can use some improvement in those areas.
In those areas, definitely. And I'm so glad that you have that data to share, to really bring awareness around where we think we're strong, that we really may need to work on to do better. I want to talk a little bit about the courses and like how people can interact with the courses. So you guys are based in Rotterdam, but your courses are offered online, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. They're in English. They're online. Our physical location is in Rotterdam. That's where we started, and we're trying to contain it to Rotterdam as long as possible. But
Uh-huh.
the team is mostly international, so we have only a handful of Dutch people, and the rest are all internationals working from Rotterdam. It's a very international city.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we make the courses. They're online. They're in English, and they also have Spanish subtitles. And they're essentially accessible. It's asynchronous learning, so you can learn from anywhere at any time. Whenever you have the time, and the busyness has subsided a little bit, you can dive into the courses, develop yourself, and then
Yeah.
whenever you have the time.
That's amazing. And would you say that you had to pivot much as a result of COVID?
It's interesting. So COVID has been an very interesting. I think for all of us. But we started from the get-go as a fully online platform. So
Right.
so all the courses that we've offered have always been asynchronous learning. Whenever you ask a question, we try. Our aim is to get as soon as possible a response on the question.
Right.
Whenever you ask for help, for support questions, we try to have a turnaround time with it. Within the day you get a reply.
Yeah.
But when COVID hit, we noticed that in the first 4, 5, 6, of course, it hits different places in the world at
Yes.
different times. But we did notice that when Europe started to go into lockdown, and then a few weeks later the US went into lockdown, we noticed that for about 1-2 months, like hardly anyone was on the platform, because everyone in HR was driving around in their cars, delivering monitors to employees'
Yes.
homes, and just focusing on the day-to-day, saving the situation and making sure that everyone had the tools.
Yes.
That was, I think, March, April, somewhere in that, and then May throughout actually this year, almost for 12 months till March this year. It's just been a tremendous interest in learning. A lot of people are spending much more time now learning, I think, because also that there's on the one hand an urgency, either you're very busy and things go well, but also for a big group of people, it hasn't been the best time. So you see there's a much more of an urgency to learn, and yeah, we've seen that on the platform, and we've been trying to do our best, also working from home, to create more courses and to just keep filling that hunger, the astronomical hunger for new content, for new learnings on all these kinds of topics. So it's been it's of course, COVID has been a very difficult time for many, but it's from that side we've been very fortunate business wise with the academy.
Wonderful. What are some of the things that you're seeing HR professionals asking for you to cover in your content now as time has elapsed?
That's a good. So we see a lot of interest in organization design and development. I think recently I spoke with a senior HR professional, and she mentioned that these turnaround processes, turnaround projects, where the entire organization from in a very short time, the turnaround change management. We see a lot of interest in that. That's one topic. We also see there's when it comes to topics like compensation, for example. One of the discussions we've had in the community was, how do you deal with compensation when your headquarters is in say in New York, and everyone is working from New York, before COVID, but then during COVID, people decide to, because you're working remote, and it doesn't make sense whether you live, a few miles away from the office, or, 1,000 miles away from the office.
Right.
It's essentially the same, so we've had a lot of questions and comments regarding those kinds of topics.
Okay.
But we still see also a lot of interest in, in digital skills, digital transformation. Almost everyone is these days in a digital transformation. Target operating models are being changed. So you see a lot of demand still for these more future-oriented skills. That we already, 5 years ago, I said we started with people analytics. We still see a lot of interest in that space, in the digital space, but also, on compensation and benefits, on some of these topics that all of a sudden just have a huge amount of interest because of what happened in the pandemic.
Yeah. That's really great that you're able to take on the feedback and then create content that you think is going to be purposeful for your audience. And I really appreciate the fact that you actually listen to us, as a community. And I want to talk about, that's what I want to talk about next. I want to talk about community. So you haven't just created this academy where you bring people in to learn, and then you leave them alone and you go away. You've actually created an entire community, which I'm so proud to be a part of, to be able to engage with students and support them in their journeys. Tell us a little bit more about this community, what it does, and what are your hopes to grow the community over time?
Thanks so much for your kind words, Julie. That's really really heartwarming. For us, like learning, can happen in courses, but for us, it happens just as much, learning from peers. Because you can do a course and, you improve, but you will constantly keep running into very specific situations where, yes, you can have some general knowledge, but it would be so much more useful to just, have access to a broader community of peers that you can ask for help, that you can ask for advice. So that has always really been our philosophy for the community, where we essentially want to have a platform where you have a community and you have the option to, first of all, learn in the community and also learn in courses. So the community for us has been almost in the forefront, and the courses has been, a big value add that we offer. But in the community, we want to offer an equal amount of value.
Yes.
And that's has really been for us the focus. And indeed, what I told at the very beginning, we started making courses because the community that we built through the web blog was asking for courses. So we started going into courses, and that's what we try to keep doing. That whatever the HR community is asking for, or a need that we see, we try to deliver on it as best as we can.
Right.
And that has always been our design philosophy, to be very as much customer oriented as possible. And in our case, the customers are the amazing HR community. So that's always a joy to interact with on a daily basis.
Yes. What is your I really love this community, and I love the fact that you have created this space. Tell me, what does your community look like from a global perspective? Because I want people to really understand who can be a part of AIHR, who can learn, and who can be a part of the community. What does it look like from a global context?
That's so. But my initial reaction would be everyone can be part of the community.
Yes.
But we, in terms of members of the community, I think that the majority is based in the United States and Canada, so North America, UK and Europe and Australia. From the top of my head, those are the main geographical areas where we have the most customers. But we also have customers in Southeast Asia. We have customers in China. In Europe, so it's in that sense a very global community. I don't know the exact number, but I think it's over 150 countries are represented in that community. And I think that makes it very unique compared to the more US centric communities, or the UK centric communities that are out there. It's a truly global community where whenever you have a question, and I think that's the fascinating part. On the one hand, you get a question, based on your own context, you can look at a problem, but when you look at different problems, it is very valuable to also get different perspectives. And someone from Australia will have a very different perspective on a problem you're having, and they may have already seen the problem and dealt with the problem. And bringing those different perspectives in, having them in one community, I think that's in a sense a treasure trove, and it's kind of having a literally a global network. So if your headquarter is in the US and you have a problem with a subsidiary somewhere else in the world, leverage that community, make use of it, because it will provide you a truly international and global perspective on the challenges that you have.
Definitely. And I want to say, in addition to the countries that you mentioned, I know that there are some Caribbean islands that persons participate in your courses. So I know Barbados for sure, and Jamaica. I've seen people share their certifications graduating from the Caribbean. So you really are not biased at all. You're really sharing this space with the entire world. And like I said, if you're not a part of AIHR, if you've never heard of it, if you have not participated in any way, anything that they're offering, this is your opportunity. So tell us, Erik, how can people tap into AIHR? Where can they find you?
Well, the easiest place is to go to www.aihr.com. So that's aihr.com.
Yes.
That's the easiest way. There you can find the courses that we offer. You can find the articles that we write, the blogs that I started with at the very beginning. We still have them. They still attract a lot of visitors, and that's also where you can get access to the courses and the broader community. So that's really the place to go. And for us, we want to continue growing that community. It's our goal to in 2025 have 100,000 people that we continuously educate, that we have in our community, that we can provide value, but that, more importantly, provide value to each other. So that for us is the long-term vision, and we're getting there. I think it's going much faster than we initially thought, and yeah, it's just very excited. So anyone who's interested, I would love to welcome them and check out AIHR.com.
Definitely. So you've heard it, guys. AIHR.com, the Academy to Innovate HR. Go check them out. And I'm telling you, you're going to be completely amazed at the catalog of sessions that they have that you can learn from. The course content is deep, rich. You have persons who are teaching those courses from all over the world as well. So go check them out and be a part of that amazing community. What can people find in that community besides being able to tap into each other? Like, what resources do you put in the community? Just to give people a little taste.
That's an awesome question. I think one of the events, we have weekly event. Yeah, I can make a long list, but I'll keep it brief. So we have weekly live events. So tomorrow we have a live event on strategic goals for 2022, where we go through some of the trends that we're seeing in HR, and we try to connect them to people's strategic goals. So, if you haven't set your strategy yet, or you have set it already and you're still tweaking it, that's, I think, a fantastic session. And we have weekly live events that we're starting with, actually, starting tomorrow on a weekly basis, these live events.
Okay.
Plus, we share articles, we share experiences, we share case studies. The community is really something that is important for us, and that going forward we only want to invest more in. So we have weekly live events, also things like Q&As. If you ask questions, they'll get answered, both as comments but also in live events. And a number of interactive sessions. So on a weekly basis, you get live events, plus the resources, plus everything else that we share. And we have a big team creating all kinds of resources that whenever you ask for it, we see if we can make it, and we try to make it, and we post it in the community. So it's also very much an on-demand. Ask for it, and we'll start working to make it, essentially.
I love that. And I find that the fact that you're so open to receive and then create to support your customer needs is like truly admirable, especially for us from an HR perspective, where, a lot of times when we're asking for things, it may not be received, or we don't get what we need. And so to be able to find this treasure trove in AIHR, I think is really truly awesome. Like, if you are not a part of this community, if you are not here, you need to get here right now. Just come on down.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Julie. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. So tell us, Erik, what are you reading, watching, listening to right now that you think other HR professionals will enjoy?
Good question. I'm actually standing here next to my dinner table. I put my laptop on a stool on my dinner table to have a good angle, so I can actually reach over and grab the nearest book. This is the book I'm reading at the moment. The leadership pipeline. And it's a fantastic book. I'm now 80 pages in, so I can't give you the full summary yet. Right. But it essentially states that it's a fantastic book on leadership development, which is one of the core themes as HR. We need to build that leadership pipeline. Yes. Think about succession planning.
Yes.
And it essentially states that as you progress, as a manager of self, the first level, you're a productive individual performer. You become a manager of others. And that means that you need to learn some new behaviors, but also unlearn some different behaviors.
Yes.
From a manager of others, you become a manager of managers. And again, you need to learn some new behaviors, but also unlearn some behaviors. Yes. And then, you kind of, that is how you build a leadership pipeline according to the book, because you need experience in the first few layers, before you can progress to that new layer.
Right.
But with every new layer, you need to unlearn certain behaviors instead of learning behaviors.
Right.
And I thought that is a fantastic perspective on. So my colleague Dieter Veldsman, he advised me to read the book. So all the credits for the brilliant choice go to him. I'm reading it, and I'm 70 pages in. I started this weekend. And I'm very excited, and I'm now thinking, like, what can we learn in HR, from this, as we advance through our HR career? What are some of the things that we learn, and what are some of the things that we need to unlearn? And I think, especially when we talk about having a strategic role as, for example, an HR business partner, as you progress and become more and more of a strategic partner as an HR professional, there are also things you need to unlearn. And I think it's very good to be conscious of the things that you need to unlearn, just as much as you focus on the things that you need to learn. So maybe it's not a good picture of, the founder of an academy saying that people need to unlearn things, but you also need to unlearn certain behaviors in order to make that next step.
Absolutely. I definitely agree that you need to unlearn, especially like when you first come into HR, you're very administrative, right? Your role is very administrative, but then when you step up and you become an HR manager, then you have to unlearn that you're not going to touch the admin stuff, because now you have the support to do that. Your job now is to support your leaders and so on. And then when you become a CHRO or a VP, as you grow, you need to unlearn certain things that you would do as an HR manager that are no longer in your remit, because like that hands-on stuff that you would do differently to when you were admin. As you grow in your role, you are constantly unlearning, because I hear so many HR professionals who I coach always saying, Julie, I'm struggling to let go of this particular thing because I'm so used to doing this. Like, I'm so used to being administrative. I don't know how to let that go, right? How do I let it go? So we definitely need to focus a lot on how we unlearn and learn so that we develop our roles. And I tie that a lot to competencies as well. Because when you think about your HR competencies, whether it's the business acumen piece, the digital piece, whatever it is, you're going to be aware of certain things. And that's the beginning of being competent, right? You're aware of it. When you're knowledgeable, it means, okay, well, now you've moved from just being aware of it to kind of like, it, you know where to find it, you know how to access it. To them moving from being knowledgeable to them kind of like being an expert. All right, you're moving towards being now a subject matter expert that people can call on you confidently to answer things. And that in itself means you're going to have to unlearn stuff and learn stuff in order to build your competency. So yeah, I could definitely see how that would work in leadership pipeline. Awesome.
I think that's a brilliant summary, Julie. I couldn't have said it better. That is a brilliant summary. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is the big question. What is the biggest misconception about HR that really bothers you that you want to set the record straight on right here, right now, today?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's if there's a misconception about HR, it is that HR is only about people. First of all, I think HR is about people, but it's similar like marketing, for example, is about people. Because in marketing you try to show advertisements to individuals, and you try to understand them, and you try to deliver them a service, which is your marketing material essentially. In the same way as HR, you also provide a service to individuals. But when we think about a marketing professional, we think about someone who is, very technologically savvy, who's very good at, at writing and expressing themselves in written communications. We think about someone who's fairly quantitative on the performance marketeer side. We think about someone who's very good at design. We don't necessarily think about a brilliant people person. Well, if we think about HR, who also interacts with people in a similar way marketing interacts with people. We have this prime association of, you need to be a people person to really work in HR.
Right.
And if we talk about misconceptions, I think that is the misconception that I would like to tackle, that, when you go into HR, yes, it is important to be a people person, but there's also so much more to it. And when I, see students who are, why do you, and I ask them, why do you go into HR? They say, oh, I would really like to work with people. I'm now doing statistics for my thesis. I hate it. I can't wait to stop. They say, yeah, well, I have news for you, because as soon as you enter HR, all the rage is on people analytics. And as soon as they hear you had a subject in statistics, they say, well, you should do that statistics for us, because we don't understand it. So yes, HR is about people, but it's about much, much more than that. And I think that's a misconception, to answer your question, that I would really like to address, that HR is also about, about the technology that, in the end delivers most of your HR services. HR is about the data that technology generates, so you can provide an even better HR service. HR is about understanding the business, because you're trying to serve the business, and if you don't do that well, then whatever you do in HR isn't really working. Exactly. And HR absolutely is also about people, but it's not just about people. And I think that's the biggest misconception that I would love to fix if I could.
Yes, well, I think just saying what you've said is a start to that for those who are going to listen to this podcast. They will get to understand exactly what you're saying. And I appreciate what you're saying, because I feel like so many times when I hear people go, why do you want to get into HR? And people go, oh, because I like people and I just want to shake you. I go, because that's not the only reason. Like there's such a big picture when it comes to HR. And I just think that when you just see the people side of it, there's so much that you're missing. And that's why a lot of times people struggle as they get into HR. So yeah, definitely, I agree with you. I got to ask you this. Erik now versus Erik, teenage Erik. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, I don't know. I think, that is a good question. I think teenage Erik was a big nerd. Well, this Erik is also still a big nerd who loves things like HR. I think teenage Erik spent way too much time playing video games. So if there's one advice I should give is, stop playing video games at a younger age, because you have so much more time left to do to do other amazing stuff. So yeah, that's probably the most tangible advice I would give a teenage Erik.
I love it. Thank you for being so open and honest. Erik, you have survived your time in the sound booth today. I want to thank you so much for joining me to have this conversation about AIHR. I wish you guys all the best. I am looking forward to doing more great things with you, and I'm hoping that our audience are going to go check you guys out, start looking at your courses, take that T-shaped HR assessment. It is free, guys. You have nothing to lose other than to find better ways to develop and grow yourself by taking that assessment. So go do it right now. And then AIHR has all the content that you need to help you build each and every single one of those competencies and make you be the great person that we know you can be. Right, Erik?
Absolutely. And thanks so much for the praise, Julie. I can just say thank you very, very much. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on your show. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the sound booth today. I hope that you found this information from this episode useful. You can find me on all social media platforms at I am Julie Turney. That's I-A-M Julie Turney. And you can find this episode or this show on most digital platforms, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it, we're there. Thanks to Anchor FM and Rock Solid Entertainment for helping me to put this content together for you. And I will see you again in the next Sound Off.